this is Editing KJ with a quick note that this episode was recorded before the WGA strike and the SAG-AFTRA strikes were resolved, and in some cases possibly before the strikes began. We're super happy to be back, so please enjoy this episode. My name is KJ, and you're listening to the Supernatural Opinions podcast, where some things in this world are supernatural. My pronouns are she, they, and this is the podcast where I talk to my fellow Supernatural fans about Supernatural, and we share our supernatural opinions.
Okie dokie. Today I am being joined by my one true loyal companion, Meredith. Please tell the people who you are. They should really know. This is like our 95th episode.
I would be really offended. I've said that before. But yeah, my name is Meredith. My pronouns are she, her, and we're going to have so much fun today.
Let's start with rating. Let's come back to who wrote and what we're recapping season 4, episode 11, Family Remains. Meredith, what would you like to rate this episode?
See, I think it's well done. They just did it a little too well because it's icky.
It is super icky. I think that's exactly it. I gave this episode a 1.5 out of 10. I do think it's like well written. It's more well written than Bugs, so it's rated much higher than Bugs was.
Yeah, like
Bugs is unenjoyable to watch because it's bad. This is enjoyable to watch because it's good.
I know, yeah. Let's see. I'll give it about a 7 because I do think it's well done. I just can't bring myself to watch it because it just freaks me out too much.
It's thoroughly unpleasant for me to watch, which is why I'm rating it low on my personal rating. I'm allowed to do that. I accept that people who enjoy horror might enjoy this episode more than I do. It just has all of the things I hate, and Dylan Minnette is not enough to overcome them. And the only other really thing that I think is really great about this episode is the direction and editing. I think it's really well directed. I think the choice of shots is really great. The cinematography of the episode is cool. Other than that, I just didn't want to be here.
I think part of the reason for that is the entire episode feels like the last 5 minutes of the episode because we just have this tension that just never dissolves until the very end.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely an episode that stuck to the horror-esque aspect of Supernatural in a way that's really cool, but we're 3.5 seasons past that type of show. I think this would fit really well into season 1 or even season 2. I just think by season 4, I've moved on to watching this show for other reasons. That was not my prime reason for watching the show in the first place.
Yeah, this is a return to like Wendigo and things like that. This is a particularly intense episode of Criminal Minds.
Which I'm also watching for the first time.
That one's fun too.
Anyway, Family Remains originally aired on January 15th, 2009. We gotta go back to cover this because I just felt like we had to get that out of the way.
Let's clear the air.
New half season, new year, new segment. I haven't even discussed this with Meredith. This is brand new information from Meredith. The number 1 song of the week, January 15th, 2009, was Just Dance by Lady Gaga featuring Colby Adonis, which beat out Queen Beyonce's Single Ladies. And we're not going to do this every week. We're just going to do the number 1 song. But since it's our first one, I just thought I would round out the top 5. Live Your Life by T.I. featuring Rihanna was number 3. Love Story by Taylor Swift was number 4. And Heartless by Kanye West was number 5. 2009 was the time.
Wow. Guess that was my time. I like a few of those songs.
I mean, 2009. We're starting to have our own opinions on musical taste by 2009.
Yeah, exactly.
That title is a reference to something. Unfortunately, there's a book called The Family Remains that was released in 2022. Congrats, Lisa Jewell, on your book. But you made me have to really dig to find anything that wasn't about your book. And none of the wiki pages had an answer or the IMDb page. And I hate this episode. So if someone else knows, please write in and tell me what they named this episode after. Because I didn't find anything specific aside from the events of the episode.
And you probably didn't really feel like digging any harder.
No, I digged through 2 or 3 pages of Google search results, and then I was like, okay, I have other things to research later. This week's episode will contain spoilers for this episode, may reference previous episodes, but will not contain spoilers for later episodes of Supernatural. This episode was written by Jeremy Carver and directed by Phil Segrisha, which is why it's so fucking creepy. It's kind of Jeremy Carver's listening. His most recent episode with us was 403 in the beginning. And Phil Segretia has already, this is his third time with us this season. He's been with us thrice, which is a lot in 11 episodes. But I'm really curious if this has something to do, because Kim Manners died unexpectedly during season 4, if that had an impact on like the directorial schedule or what. Because I know like some people directed who weren't intending to direct, and I just feel like that may have impacted their schedule. It's just odd for him to be here 3 times in 11 episodes. That's quite a lot for anyone on Supernatural. They're usually moving a lot of writers and directors in and out.
We should get him as a guest on the podcast and ask him ourselves.
Either way, Phil Segretia's great. His other 2 episodes this season were 402 Are You There, God? It's Me, Dean Winchester, and 406 Yellow Fever. So this is a pretty big shift from both of those episodes in terms of direction. And as I said in the episode rating, I think the direction in this episode was fantastic. All around, it's like a total vibe change up for what they've done this season. Like this episode is like the most like the Benders, I think, out of any other episode of Supernatural.
Yeah, but it actually manages to be creepier than the Benders.
Yeah, somehow much creepier than the Benders. I have no issue watching the Benders. I don't watch this. And for those of you who have listened to past episodes of the podcast, and Moira, when she was watching Supernatural for the first time, I was like, we're going to skip this episode. There's nothing in here that you really need to know, and there's nothing in here that you would find at all enjoyable, so we're just going to keep going.
Exactly. Like, we're doing you a favor. It's an intense episode.
It was like, I think we're going to wait till it's like daylight to watch this, and then I was like, you know what? We're not even going to do that. We're just going to skip it.
Never mind.
Anyway, total death count. Surprisingly not as many deaths as you would think. This week we saw 4 deaths, bringing our on-screen total to 296, and then the on and off-screen total for this episode was, I said it was 5. It was actually 6.
Are we counting the dog?
Not counting the dog. I did have a big debate about counting the dog, but we have not counted the dog in the past. When Bobby's dog died, we did not count Rumsfeld, so I did not count Buster, unfortunately. I did feel bad about it, and I did seriously like have a debate with myself about it, so I just got to update my spreadsheet.
That's all right. We can, instead of counting the dog, we can have like a memorial for the dog.
Yes, I think we should, because like Buster didn't deserve that.
Right. The main reason I didn't rate this episode higher in quality was because they killed the dog.
It's good to see cat lover Meredith really getting indignant about the fate of a dog. That's when you know things have gone badly for the dog.
See, I like dogs. I just don't know what to do around them.
That's fair. That is also pretty much how I feel about cats. So like we're a good pair.
There we go. You can cover the dogs. I'll cover the cats.
Our on and off screen total is 1,946 plus.
Wow. No one else is here to say it, so I have to say wow.
No update on the Heavenly Host. Not an angel in sight in this episode.
We could have used one.
We could have fucking used one. We could have used some help.
No, we gotta crawl through the walls ourselves.
We're gonna get right into the recap, and like, I don't know. I think I did a good job on my notes, but also I was trying to get us through this as quickly and painlessly as possible. So we'll see how I did.
Smart.
We last left off with a very super emotionally charged episode where Dean came clean about his health trauma. There was angels and demons fucking everywhere, and Dean and Anna and Sam and Ruby's case literally fucking. We start with a man having dinner in front of his TV. He realizes that he can't get out of his house, and this scary ass looking girl shows up, and he says, it's impossible. You stay away from me. And then blood goes spurting everywhere. The guy's dead.
It's quite possible.
Yeah, very possible. I don't know why he was so shocked, honestly. Cut to Sam and Dean, whose car is parked right in front of a no hunting sign, which I thought was an excellent choice. Kudos to the set designers.
What's really fun about the opening scene is even though this episode turns out to be very different from the rest of the episodes, is that the opening is there's nothing out of place. It opens like an episode of Supernatural usually does.
Oh yeah, it's like very much like a regular, like definitely like ghost like scenario. We're gonna be on the ghost train for a while.
Oh yeah, like she looks like she's dead. That helps.
The Sam and Dean scene is actually very cute. They're clearly camped out in the car for the night, and Sam's in the back seat and Dean's in the front seat, and Sam wakes up and he finds Dean looking for a case in the newspaper, and Sam's like, we need to sleep. You can't avoid sleeping and dream about hell forever. This is exactly what Dean said to Sam in season 1 when he was having all those nightmares about Jess dying, and I just thought that it was really cute to see them like camped out in the car. That's a thing that we know that they do, but I'm not sure it's something we've actually seen them do before.
It's very fun to see 6'4" Sam try to sleep in that backseat.
Yeah, and also Dean does need to sleep. I don't blame him from avoiding it, but like he does need to sleep. Dean's got a locked house murder mystery, which sounds like a ghost, and Sam just flops himself back down in the backseat. He's like, okay, we're gonna go check this out. I'm gonna keep sleeping.
Smart. You're gonna need it.
The house is for sale, and the sold bit of the sign that hangs off the bottom that they add after the sale has fallen off, so Sam and Dean conveniently drive past it without seeing that the house has been sold. The house is not wheelchair accessible. That's the first thing I noticed about this house. There's a huge staircase to get up to the front door, and then immediately inside the door there's another like very steep like old house type staircase, and it's implied that this house is pretty old, so that makes sense.
Oh yeah, like, you know, just in case you want to kill someone by pushing them downstairs, we can provide that.
Yeah.
That's what the real estate agent said.
And then I really love the shots of the inside the house. That's when I really started to notice the direction on this episode. There's lots of like high up overhead, almost like CTV style shots, like almost like shots of like people's homes, like people who put like Ring cameras in like their living rooms and stuff. But like I just really liked these like high up overhead angles of Sam and Dean going through this empty house. And then Dean says, boy, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and 1 homicide. This place is gonna sell like hotcakes, which I thought was so cute.
Never buy a house. I feel like don't ever buy a house where the murder was unsolved. If you're all right with living in a house where someone died, then that's up to you. But like,
recent, like
yeah, if it's recent and unsolved, just don't go anywhere near it. They might come back.
Yeah, and also like check your state regulations about how far back the real estate agents have to disclose murders when you're buying a house, because like it's not there is a statute of limitations on how far back they have to disclose. So you know, like the murder could just get a certain number of years away. Like the real estate agent doesn't have to tell you anymore.
If it's like 50 years, then I think it's like a little
it's
safer.
Probably fine, but
maybe the person died of old age.
But also just like, you know, if you're some people are more sensitive to energy than others, and like, you know, living in a house where a murder happened just might not be very good for you if that's the case.
But if it was like a month ago.
Yeah, you know, if the murder was super recent, also like it just might be unsettling to live there. And also like people might come, you never know, like if it's a really public case, like people might like come to your house and like you maybe don't want to deal with that. Like you should just find stuff out before.
Yeah, you know, if it was like a month ago, the guy was found murdered in his locked living room.
Yeah.
And no, they don't know who did it or how they did it. Maybe just don't.
Dean finds a sealed up dumbwaiter and then calls Sam a know-it-all for knowing what a dumbwaiter is. And then like when Sam is like, what did you say? He pretends he didn't say anything, which I thought was like such cute sibling dynamics. Like, Dean's like, I got away with it. It does kind of like lessen the impact if the other person doesn't hear that you insulted them, but like it is like a little bit like Spunk Big Brother-esque.
Oh yeah, I've definitely done that. But also like sealed up dumbwaiter is another red flag.
Yeah, also a red flag. Because like why wouldn't you just like keep the dumbwaiter? Dumbwaiters are cool. Why are we sealing it up?
Let the children play in them. It's safe.
Definitely safe. They get some EMF hits, but there's like big power lines outside which apparently interfere with the EMF, which makes sense. They find a decapitated and de-haired, very sad looking doll head in the closet and are both rightfully repulsed by it.
It's another red flag.
It's the only thing in the house too. Like there's not like, it's not like there's trash all over the house. Like there's nothing in this house. Which is odd considering like the only person who lived in this house died. Like usually like they aren't so like good about cleaning that shit up.
Yeah.
Usually they leave a lot of shit for the new owners. But anyway, a moving truck and SUV pull up with said new owners. They're moving in. They have a dog named Buster. We have a mom, Susan, a dad, Brian, a teenage daughter named Kate, and a younger brother whose name is Danny, but I might accidentally call him Dylan because his IRL name is Dylan.
Oh yeah, I was calling him Dylan throughout the entire episode. Like, I know that child.
And Uncle Ted is also with us.
Uncle Ted.
We'll get to it in the Bechdel test, but I think that this episode could have greatly improved from having an aunt instead of Uncle Ted. Like Uncle Ted is fine, but I think that as far as the Bechdel test is concerned, there's no reason that Uncle Ted had to be an uncle and not an aunt.
It's fair, yeah.
Sam and Dean come out of the house, and Dean introduces them as Stanwyck and Bavar from the County Code Enforcement, which is a Fletch 1985 reference. Forgot to go back and check my notes, but I feel like we've had another Fletch reference before. I feel like that wasn't our first Fletch reference. Let me see if I can open
Not
my...
even sure what Fletch is.
It's a movie from 1985.
Oh, yeah, it makes sense. That's why Dean's referencing it.
Yeah. Sorry, it's just gonna take a minute for my notes to open, my season 1 to 3 notes, because I'm pretty sure we've had a Fletch reference reference before. And I didn't think about that until it was like literally coming out of my mouth. Anyway, I'll keep talking about what this conversation is and then come back to the Fletch reference.
Oh, speaking of references, wasn't there like an X-Files thing?
Yes, there was an X-Files thing. Okay, we've been through the empty house. Before we get into the new family moving to the house, let's talk about the house.
Apparently, this house might have been used in the episode Home on the X-Files. And that's scarily appropriate because that episode is also known for being a bit more grisly than the rest of the show. And it doesn't involve anything supernatural, and it involves a pair of inbred brothers killing people.
Okay, so like kind of Bendersy then. And kind of this episode also.
Yeah, also kind of this episode. I actually didn't watch Home because I heard a lot about it, and I thought, I don't really need to watch this, and I don't really want to, because it sounds like it would just freak me out. I actually heard it was banned from some networks.
Interesting.
Yeah, because, in the 90s, they just thought, that we don't need to put
the
this on
inbreeding
TV.
And the murder and the everything.
And just very, kind of graphic violence, more graphic than the rest of the show.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's very appropriate that they used this house.
Yeah, I read that it was maybe the same house on IMDb, and I know that you've watched X-Files, so I was thinking maybe you would have some extra knowledge about it, but
I do.
I'm glad that you were able to provide that. Okay.
What exactly is Fletch about?
Let me tell you what that movie's about, and why we would maybe be making a reference to it in this episode. That might be a good thing to actually say.
Let's do that, yeah.
Okay, the plot of the movie is, the film revolves around, according to the wiki page, the film revolves around Los Angeles Times reporter Erwin M. Fletcher, who is offered a large sum of money by a millionaire to kill him, claiming he has terminal cancer prognosis, and suicide would invalidate his life insurance policy. Fletch becomes suspicious when he discovers the man is not ill, and he continues to investigate. His life is threatened.
Sounds kind of fun.
Yeah.
I'd watch it.
Stanwyck is the millionaire that hires Fletch to kill him. And Babar is, I think, Fletch's, one of Fletch's aliases that he uses.
Oh, I see. Stanwyck is a really great millionaire name.
Yeah, it is. Alan Stanwyck is a great millionaire name.
It sounds pretentious.
Alan Stanwyck feels like a Bruce Wayne, or what's Bruce Wayne's grandfather's name?
I don't
remember either.
Don't really know if his grandfather was even relevant.
He is in Gothic Knight, or Gotham Knights.
Okay. Haven't watched that.
I think we're done opening at 420 pages. Let's see if I can search this document.
Oh wow, it has Chevy Chase. I only know him from Community.
Oh yeah. Dean used the alias Alan Stanwyck, and we talked about how this movie started Chevy Chase. That was in season 2, episode 4.
What happened in that episode?
That was the zombie girl. Children can play with dead things.
That's kind of appropriate.
Huh, interesting. That was when Dean was really struggling, because he was really wrestling with the idea that maybe John had made a deal to save his life, and John was dead, and now Dean's struggling with his actions in hell. Anyway, so there has been a Fletch reference before from Dean with an alias. It's funny though, because he used Stanwyck last time, so now he's using Babar, which is either Fletch's or Stanwyck's alias.
Well, anyway, that was fun.
Tell me. Yeah, glad we went on that journey.
There we go. It paid off.
Stanwyck is one of Babar is one of Fletch's aliases, not Stanwyck's aliases. That would have been two names. Sam claims that there's asbestos in the walls and the house is uninhabitable. It's a health hazard, and Dean suggests they go to a motel. Sam and Dean get suited up and they go talk to the housekeeper. The former owner, Mr. Gibson, his wife, died during childbirth, and then his daughter died by suicide in the house at the age of 20.
Young.
Very young. She gives them some pictures of the daughter. The housekeeper didn't know anything about the daughter, but thought she heard some rustling in the walls, but never saw any rodents or anything that would be responsible for the rustling, and says that both the mother and the daughter were cremated. The daughter's name is Rebecca. I don't think we find that out until pretty late in the episode, because I was listening for it, but eventually we do find out that her name's Rebecca. Meanwhile, Sam and Dean have failed their bluff check. I play D&D now, y'all, so I get to make D&D jokes. The family's moving in anyways. The daughter, Kate, thinks she sees someone in the upstairs window. She thinks she sees a woman. open, and Danny is playing video games when he's supposed to be unpacking, and his closet door opens and a ball rolls out, and he gets up to investigate. This is like a really great shot of him like standing up in this room and like facing the closet. He introduces himself and he rolls the ball back, and then the ball is like overhand thrown out to him. So he has made a friend.
How old is this kid?
He's like pretty young, like maybe like 12-ish, maybe younger, maybe like 10.
Okay.
At first I was going to say 12, but I think he might be younger. I think he might be in the 8 to 10 range, actually. He's pretty young.
Yeah, like I feel like 7 or 8, like that's
Kate's definitely a teenager, and we found out they have an older brother, Andy, who was probably old enough to drive. Kate seems like she's maybe in her like mid-teens.
Yeah, like 7 or 8 seems like an age where I would expect you to like see a ball coming out of the closet and think, oh, a friend.
Yeah, Danny definitely seems younger.
Yeah, like
on the younger side.
If you were like 10 to 12, I would expect you to get your mom.
Yeah, I think he's more 8-10 kind of range.
Makes more sense.
He's not like a small child, but he's definitely still a child for sure.
Yeah, like a child whose like brain has developed enough to give him like free will.
I wouldn't even count him as like a tween. I would say he's definitely a kid. Like downstairs, the dad, Brian, is complaining about a smell, like something died in the walls, in the kitchen.
Well,
and
fun story.
Yeah, Sam and Dean didn't notice anything earlier, but Brian's wife is having some misgivings about the move, but he promises that things are going to be different and they're going to be happy, and she alludes to them having gone through a really tough year. The Winchesters get back, see that the family have moved in, and are a bit of a loss on what to do. Sam suggests telling them the truth that their house is haunted, but immediately rescinds that idea when Dean's like, seriously? We can do that? And Sam's like, no, we can't do that. That's stupid.
They're not going to believe us.
Even though he's the one that said it. Uncle Ted calls the parents over to see their probably brand new wallpaper, given that a murder happened in this house, has been defiled with a red crayon to write go in like giant 3-foot high letters, and they blame Danny.
You guys should leave.
Danny insists that the girl on the wall must have done it and tells them that she likes kids but hates grown-ups, and she's going to be really mad if they don't go, and then they don't believe him, and he yells that Andy would believe him as he's sent up to his new room.
Yeah, go to a motel, guys. Like, how many times do I have to say this?
Now I have to be back with Kate. Kate hears panting and like drops her arm over the bed, and her hand is licked, but then her door opens and Buster the dog comes in and her closet slams shut. Kate screams and freaks the hell out. We talked about this urban legend of like the hand licking thing when we covered Hookman, and we're going to do our best not to talk too much about it again because I hate it.
Because guess what? It's still gross.
Yeah, still awful.
And creepy. And,
Sam and Dean respond to the screaming, and Buster slips outside when they come in while the kids are screaming about the ghost in the walls. The power cuts and we hear the sounds of Buster yelping, and Sam, Dean, Dad, and Uncle Ted all run outside. They find the words "too late" written in blood on the moving truck, and the dad decides he's finally going to listen and leave, but all the vehicles have had their tires slashed, and Baby's trunk arsenal is totally empty. We've never seen anybody find Baby's trunk arsenal before.
how did they know?
I don't know. I guess she was watching them when they came in the first time.
That must be it. Yeah, because like they don't have any knowledge of hunters.
Yeah, it's not like a thing that people just like lift up. I mean, like they keep I feel like we should say the trunk arsenal is where you keep the spare tire. Like it's like underneath the actual trunk. Like there's a divider there that you're supposed to keep a spare tire in, and Sam and Dean keep guns in there.
Maybe they could have known that there was that they could have looked for a spare tire.
Maybe they were looking for a spare tire because they do slash all the tires on all the vehicles. So they also could have just happened to have found it. But anyway, she's taken all of the weapons.
It's thorough.
Dean's really pissed about it. He's really pissed about his car having its tires slashed. He's pissed about everything.
Baby has been violated.
Yeah. Kate sees the ghost outside, which is way out of the norm. Usually the ghosts can't get very far away from their house. Sam and Dean still have salt, so they salt line the family into the living room, and Dad and Uncle Ted are not happy about it. Sam and Dean come clean, and they're both very thrilled that Danny compares them to Scooby-Doo. Like, both of them visibly thrilled.
Oh man, this could have gone so well if this was just a ghost.
Yeah. Kate and Danny ID the daughter, the picture of the daughter, because they have a picture of the wife and the picture of the daughter, because I'm not sure who the ghost is, and they're like, the daughter's the ghost. And Ted wants to leave, and Dean threatens to shoot him. He doesn't have a gun. Sam definitely seems mildly concerned about Dean's state of mind, but he leaves Dean anyways with the family to go check the attic where the daughter died. The girl on the walls comes out of the closet. She's horrible. horrifying. It's very Bloody Mary-esque, which is also, I guess, very Ring-esque.
Yeah, she has great teeth.
And walks just right across the salt circle, and Dean realizes she's not a ghost, and he doesn't have a gun, so he just, like, hand-to-hand combating this small girl.
Like, this means we could just backhand her. We can't do that.
Yeah, Sam comes down and shines a flashlight at her, which scares her back into the walls. And Sam and Dean have to have a conversation about how this is an actual girl just killing people. She's not old enough to be Rebecca. Rebecca would be like 40 to 50 years old. Sam found Rebecca's diary in the attic, though, but he doesn't have time to read it just yet. They lost Danny in the confusion. A very slow shot on Brian's face before he yells Danny. It's very Winchester-like, and Danny is the perfect medium between Dean and Sammy, which is usually what people yell when there's a slow zoom on their face. Usually one of those two things.
Sammy!
The mom, Susan, who the dad calls Suze, which I like. I think that's like a very, like, married thing. I just think, like, shortening your spouse's name.
Yeah, I also like the nickname Suze for Susan.
Yeah.
It's cute. They also had it in for a character in Confessions of a Shopaholic.
Yeah, I just really like. I really like it. You know, it's like, I don't know. My dad does that with my mom's name, so I thought it was nice.
Oh yeah, it's cute.
Suze wants to find Danny, but Dean convinces her to take Kate and go hide in the shed. And Sam and Brian and Dean and Ted all agree that that's what should happen. So Sam and Brian are going to take the yard, and Dean and Ted are going to take the house. Dean starts looking for holes in the wall, and he is entirely unfazed by the clearly horrific scent of the inner walls, which are shockingly thick. Walls are not like this in houses. This is insane. The space inside these walls.
You mean they're not supposed to have enough room for a broad-shouldered 6-foot whatever man to walk through them? Like, what do you mean?
No, not Ted. There's a hole down, and Dean resigns himself to just going in there. It's a tight squeeze for him because he is much more broad-shouldered than the girl. And he finds a bunch of dead animals, including Buster the dog. And he describes it as our kitchen. Horrible. Because obviously they're not cooking anything, so like not only are they eating the dog, but they're eating the dog raw. Let's not talk about it anymore.
No, let's not linger on that.
Dean does find a drawing of like two stick figures. One's clearly a boy and one's clearly a girl, based on the traditional ways of drawing stick people.
One has a skirt and hair.
Yeah, and the other one doesn't have either of those things.
Nope.
Ted starts getting a little bit more investigatorly. He surprises the girl, or the girl surprises him. They surprise each other, and she stabs him through the throat, and he's dead.
Oh no, Ted.
Sam is outside, and he insists that they need to stay and wait for Dean to get back before they can go anywhere else. Dean comes back. He doesn't have Danny, and he has carried Ted's body out of the house.
Everything got worse, guys.
Yeah, Dean is taking this death almost as hard as Susan is, and like this is Susan's brother that's just died.
Yeah.
And her kid that's missing. Dean is taking this very hard. So then Sam is reading Rebecca's journal, and Dean is asking Brian about Andy. And we find out that Andy was their oldest child, and he was in a car accident last year and died, and their marriage suffered and their family suffered, and they moved out here to get a fresh start, which is going very badly.
Like, you guys are the like textbook family in a horror movie, and this is just gonna happen now.
Unfortunately, now they have another loss that there's gonna be a strain on their family.
Oh, don't worry. I'm sure it won't be the last one.
Dean promises to get Brian his son back, which is a hefty promise, but he makes it. And Brian is like demanding why Dean cares so much about their family. But luckily, Dean doesn't have to answer that question because Sam is like, the girl is Rebecca's daughter, and she was impregnated by her father. And Dean, once again, this is the second time he's done an episode, disavows humanity. And he makes a reference to the Fritzl case, which happened in 2008, so would have been extremely topical in early 2009. And I will have the unfortunate details in our case section this week. I did bring those. Sam says that the daughter's been locked up in the walls for her whole life. She's barely human, but that doesn't give her a free pass to go on a murder spree. Unfortunately, Sam's metaphorical "her life has been hell" rubs Dean the wrong way about his hell experience and Sam's lack of hell experience. And I'm like, buddy, Sam tried very hard to take your place, and you were very clear that you did all of that for Sam to not have to do it.
But also, like, yeah, her life has been hell.
And like, yeah, and like you can have feelings about hell and your experience, and like, but like don't take it out on Sam, and don't like discount how awful this girl's life has been. Dean says that the dad would have had to feed her, so it makes sense that the dumbwaiter is a good place to look. And then Danny is unfortunately waking up in the dark, tied up, very scared. And the girl brings him a rat to eat. But obviously Danny's very scared, understandably, to see a rat in his face and then watch it get killed and then be eaten raw.
Something I thought was interesting about that scene is that it's shot with like a night camera.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so, I thought that was kind of cool. I don't think we've really seen that very often on this show.
I feel like not since Ghostfacer, like the Ghostfacers episode, have we seen them actually use night vision. But it feels like the horror movie vibe. Like that like really feeds into the horror movie vibe of it. Is that like night vision shot type stuff. Because they could have just lit the shot. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's also with the implication that it's so dark and in there that they have to use it.
And some of it feels very like Danny's POV. Like when she's coming out of the wall with the rat, like that feels like it's from Danny's point of view.
Oh yeah, it's even creepier.
And there's a lot of like shaky, it's giving like found footage, which is like I do not enjoy any horror movie, but one of my favorite horror movie tropes is found footage.
Yes, I appreciate horror. I just don't like watching it.
Yeah, I don't want to experience the fear. Meanwhile, Dean is climbing down the shaft and Sam is moving on to thinking about how to get them back up. He probably should have thought about that before Dean went down, but at least somebody thought about it, because as soon as Dean went over the side, Sam's like, we should probably find some curtains and like make a rope so they can get out. Because they hadn't planned for that. Also, just I guess Sam assumed that like Danny probably wasn't gonna be able to climb out because he's like a kid. Dean can climb out. We've seen Sam and Dean climb an elevator shaft up 7 stories, so they have the upper body strength to do it. But good assumption that Danny probably can't do that.
Hold on to my neck, Danny.
Kate and Sue are in the shed and the window gets smashed in, which is when we start to be like, oh, there's like more beings happening than there should be, because like a lot's happening all at the same time.
All these beings are happening.
Dean finds one of their guns on the ground and starts like crawling through the walls looking for Danny, and can hear Danny like screaming, and he finds Danny and cuts him loose, and he's like, the girl's brother's gonna be back just in time for Dean to get tackled by said brother. Meanwhile, the sister, is after Mom and Kate. Sam and Brian pull Danny up, and Dean blinds the brother with his flashlight, which gives him the time he needs to shoot the brother. Kate and Sue are still being attacked when the girl is dragged away and brutally stabbed many times by Brian. It's pretty awful to listen to as well. Not as awful as listening to the dog get murdered, but like pretty close in terms of like the sounds that are happening.
Yeah. She makes like these guttural, like strangled noises all the time.
Yeah, there's like some screaming and like she can spell, but it doesn't seem like she can speak.
Yeah, I guess she never really needed to.
She can read and write.
At least a few words.
At least too late. Sam and Dean come out of the house. Kate is sobbing and Susan is holding Danny, and they're all sitting on the porch together, the three of them. And Sam and Dean see the sister's body, and the shot of her face was very Silence of the Lambs poster to me. Just, I don't know, the angle and the paleness and the like shape of her face. Sam and Dean are going to split before the police get there, and Sam said it's a mutual appreciation thing. No explanation on how they fixed all of the tires on Baby to do that, but okay.
I'm willing to let it slide.
Yeah, who cares?
Let's get out of here.
Brian and Susan say they're going to be okay because they still have their family. I'm like, Ted's still dead, but okay. He wasn't the kid, so he's fine. It's fine. He was the expendable family member.
It's fine. Maybe we have enough money in this family for therapists.
Yeah, I mean, they've been going to therapy already, so just add on to bills.
Oh my gosh, their next session's gonna be so interesting. Like, you'll never guess what happens.
You told us to move to the fucking country and get a fresh start, and now we have another loss to grieve.
Also, I can't sleep at night now.
Yeah, and things have gotten exponentially worse. Kate was openly sobbing, sitting on the front porch of their new house. Like, Kate is gonna need help.
Like, I am moving to a bunker, okay?
Kate is never gonna recover. And their dog, like, losing a dog, like, a pet is also traumatic, not on top of losing a family member. Like,
yeah, and, like,
your dog's also, like, they lost 2 family members.
Exactly. Like, you didn't lose them in any way where you can just...
Yeah, they were already struggling with a car accident. Like, this is, like, straight up a murder for moving to a house.
Yeah, all these these deaths are sudden and they're
awful.
Yes. And it's not like illness or anything where you have like time to come to terms with it. They're sudden and they're awful.
And they feel really, really senseless murders too. Like Sam and Dean stop to get burgers. They're in new clothes. Dean is in the John jacket and he says he felt bad for the kids in the walls. And Sam says they were barely humans. And Dean says that he was worse because they were animals defending their own territory, but he enjoyed what he was doing in hell, which is news to Sam. Sam saw this whole hell situation that he just learned about as like an under duress type deal where Dean was torturing people, but he did not want to. This revelation that the torture was enjoyable to Dean is a shock to Sam's system. And again, I think that Sam and Dean should be bonding in this season, and they're not bonding over the things that I think should be bonding them.
Exactly. I guess, I don't know. Whenever Sam has done bad things in the past, he always has some sort of justification for them.
Yeah, and he
never really seems to enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, at least not up to this point.
Yeah. So I guess in this case, he's kind of surprised that that's even possible for one of them.
Dean says no matter how many people he saves, it will never change or undo that or fill that hole. But like that hole is the thing about that hole that Dean can't fill is that's the thing that makes people into demons. Like that was the demonification process starting. But that's where the episode ends, is with Dean just being hopeless about his whole life situation. MVP of the week. Meredith, who would you nominate as this week's most valuable person?
Oh dear. I don't know. I guess both the brothers seemed like they were doing
about the
same amount.
50-50 each way. I came very close to doing the exact same thing, so I am very glad to hear that I'm not the only one. I was gonna also split 50-50, but I changed my mind and I gave it to Dean just for the last fight, just because when Dean's in that fight with the brother in the wall, he shoots the guy like 3 times and he's dead, and then Sam climbs through the wall like 2 seconds later. He missed the whole fight. That was the only reason I gave it to Dean, was that one fight. Even though Sam's the one who like found the Rebecca information.
Meanwhile,
which I breezed over. It was awful.
Yeah, we breezed over it for a reason.
Yeah, Bechdel test. Did we have 2 named women in this episode? Technically, no. Rebecca's daughter, the main antagonist of the episode, does not have a name.
Wait, there's Kate.
There's Kate
and there's Susan.
I guess Kate and Susan, yeah. Did they talk about something other than a man?
I don't know. Were they talking when Kate was freaking out?
I think they talked about the move, like the house.
Yeah, and like she was also had that scene where Kate was freaking out. Did they really talk about, like, she probably wanted comfort from her mom?
Yeah, I think that this episode does pass the Bechdel test.
You know, does trying to kill someone count as a conversation? Although the girl didn't really have a name.
Speak, and she didn't have a name, so I'm gonna say she doesn't count.
That's how she communicates.
This week's case of the week was humanity and like a lack of humanity. But this episode was very heavily based on the case of Elizabeth Fritzl. Meredith, do you have anything you want to talk about in the like mythology case section, or should
I have a completely different case that is not Fritzl.
Okay, I will talk about Fritzl, then you can talk about your case, and we will meet in the middle.
Great.
The Fritzl case happened. I mean, it happened in like the 80s, but it came to light in 2008 when a woman named Elizabeth Fritzl told police in the town of, I should have practiced how to say the town name, Amstetten, Lower Austria, that she had been held captive for 4 years by her father, Joseph Fritzl, and he had sexually abused her and kept her in a concealed area of the cellar of their family home. And she had 7 children, and 3 of them remained in captivity with her. One of them died shortly after birth, and the other 3 were brought upstairs by Joseph Fritzl and his wife Rosemary, and were like reported as like kids they found. But yeah, Joseph was also suspected of a couple of other murders of a 17-year-old girl, and he was also looked into as suspect of the death of another 17-year-old in 1986 and 1966 respectively.
Wow.
So yeah, there was some other stuff happening.
What happened to Joseph?
Good question. Let's talk about first what happened to Elizabeth.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
On August 20th in 1984, Elizabeth was 18 years old, and her father, Joseph, lured her into the basement of their home saying he needed help carrying a door. But in reality, he had been converting their basement into a prison chamber, and the door was the last thing he needed to seal it. And after Elizabeth held the door in place while he fitted it into the frame, he knocked her out. He basically chloroformed her and threw her inside. Her mom filed a missing persons report, and then about a month later, Joseph had a letter written that he forced Elizabeth to write that stated that she was tired of living with her family and was staying with a friend, and she didn't want her parents to look for her or she would leave the country. And he told the police that she probably joined a cult.
It was the 80s.
So he held her there for 24 years, and he would go every day or every other day to bring food and other supplies.
So I guess Rosemary was complicit then.
No, she didn't know anything about any of this.
Interesting. I'm guessing he wasn't an easy person to live with.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like... I mean, he had already gotten away with some murders, so at that point, so...
Yeah, if you're that kind of person who can do that, then you probably doesn't encourage your wife to ask questions.
3 of the kids were left on the family doorstep with notes from Elizabeth, and they regularly received visits from social workers who saw and heard nothing that made them suspicious. And then one of the children died in childbirth, and then 3 of the children lived in the basement with her. She had a television, a radio, and a cassette player, a refrigerator, and a hot plate. And she taught the kids how to read and write, and they would sometimes be punished by not having food delivered or having the lights turned off. And Elizabeth was told that the 3 kids would be killed if they tried to escape.
Yeah, makes sense. That's probably why she didn't try.
Yeah, investigators found that there was probably an empty threat. He said that he would gas them, but there was no gas supply to the basement. So apparently he would work in the basement, which is why he would spend so much time down there, and nobody thought of that. In April of 2008, one of the oldest daughter fell unconscious and needed medical attention, and Elizabeth helped him to carry her out of the chamber and saw the outside world. And then he forced her to go back into the chamber, where she remained for the rest of that week. And she was taken by ambulance to a local hospital and was admitted to the hospital with kidney failure. He later went to the hospital and claimed to have a note written by her mother, and he discussed the daughter's condition and the note with the doctor. And the medical staff was something doesn't seem right, and they contacted the police on April 21st. And the police started looking for Elizabeth, the missing mother, to come forward and provide information about Kristen's medical history, because she didn't have any medical history, obviously, because she'd been raised in a basement her whole life.
At this point, Elizabeth is in her early 40s.
Yeah. And the police reopened the case file on Elizabeth's disappearance, and Fritzl was she joined a cult, and presented the most recent letter he had from her, which was from January, and it was postmarked from a different town. And the police contacted some experts and was this doesn't seem right either. And Elizabeth pleaded with Joseph to be taken to the hospital, and on April 26th, he released her from the cellar along with the 2 boys, Stefan and Felix, and brought them upstairs. And he took her to the hospital where Kristen was. And following a tip-off from the doctor that they were both at the hospital, the police detained them and took them to the police station for questioning. And Elizabeth told him everything that had happened over the last 24 years and all the horrible details. And he was arrested. And then Elizabeth and her children the next day on April 27th and her mother were all taken into care. And Fritzl told the police how to enter the basement through a hidden door with a keyless entry code. And Rosemary had no idea about any of this.
Huh.
They confirmed through DNA that Joseph was the biological father of all the children.
Do we know where the other 3 ended up?
The 3 that were out?
Yeah.
They were living with Rosemary and Joseph.
Oh, okay.
As their grandchildren. Right.
So they're not in foster care or anything.
Yeah, they were everybody was kind of taken into protective custody or care. I don't know. Joseph was 73 when he was arrested. So Rosemary Rosemary might be pretty old by the time that this was happening as well. Like, anyway, the police believed that, like, he was planning to, like, fake rescue her from the fictitious cult and, like, bring her out of the basement. But who knows if that was really what the plan was. But
I mean, after 24 years.
Yeah, all of the family members were offered new identities, and they were all, like, housed in a clinic to receive medical and psychological treatment, including all 6 of the kids and both moms.
Yeah, they're gonna need it.
And obviously the 3 kids and Elizabeth that were, like, in the cellar needed additional therapy and, like, treatment to, like, adjust to, like, light and shit, like, and cope with living outside of the cellar.
Like taxes and things like that.
Yeah. Kirsten had to go into a like medically induced coma, but she did wake up and was reunited with her family. Elizabeth asked for Rosemary to, like, move out of the house that they were living in, which was not the house that they had, like, been living in. It was a different house that was provided for them by the psychiatric clinic. And then they did move back into the psychiatric clinic. Let's see if I can find out where they ended up, actually. Obviously, there was a trial.
Oh, okay.
In 2013, workers filled the basement of the Fritzls' home with concrete.
Yeah, good idea. Just no.
Yeah.
That's a cursed space now.
Some of the neighbors wanted it to be completely torn down, but they offered the home to asylum seekers, and the home was sold for £160,000 or €160,000 in December of 2016. And the buyers were going to convert the building into apartments. Joseph went to prison for a long time. I think life without parole, I think, is what he got. He pleaded guilty to murder by negligence of the child that died, Michael, and enslavement, incest, rape, coercion, and false imprisonment of Elizabeth, and was sentenced to life in prison. And he ended up changing his name because of the other inmates did not enjoy him.
I wonder why.
Elizabeth is apparently doing better. She likes shopping and driving. She passed her driving test.
Good for her.
All the kids have developed, like, sibling relationships with one another. So, like, the 3 that were in the cellar and the 3 that weren't in the cellar. And the, like, children, like, have a good relationship with Elizabeth as their mother. Even the 3 that were raised by the grandmother. And, like, Elizabeth and Rosemary have, like, a tentative relationship again as well. There's a pretty good movie about this, fictionalized quite a bit, but it's a 2021 movie called Girl in the Basement by Lifetime. And it's like got some like details that are separate, but, like, some of the details are, like, pretty exact. And then also, like, there's been several other true crime and, like, true crime inspired films. One of them's Room, which I think stars Brie Larson.
Yeah, I have heard of Room, and I was thinking of it while you were talking, actually.
Yeah, definitely inspired by Josef Fritzl.
Yeah, I think she got a bunch of awards for that.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I've seen it.
Cool.
I've also seen The Girl in the Basement from Lifetime, and it's pretty good and pretty accurate to some of the things. She only has 4 kids in the show, so only one of the kids lives upstairs, and the other 3 live downstairs with her. But and some of the details about how she gets out are a little bit different, but overall, good movie. Meredith, what case did you want to tell us about? It was horrifying.
Well, mine's also pretty horrifying. Have you ever heard of Hinterkaifeck?
Have I? Yes, but I don't know any details.
Great. So we start in 1922 on the Hinterkaifeck farm in Bavaria, Germany, where the Gruber family was discovered murdered with a pickaxe in March and early April. So we have 6 people. We have the dad, Andreas, the mom, Kazelia, their widowed daughter, Victoria, and her kids, Kazelia Jr. and Josef. And then we also have the family maid, Maria Baumgartner. So Maria and Josef were found in their beds, but the rest were found in the farm, stacked in a pile, which is kind of gross.
I have heard of this case.
Yeah, it's pretty famous. Some of the other details you might jog your memory a little more.
That jogged my memory.
Case was never solved. We have suspects, but it has not we don't
solved.
know anything. Now let's get on to the reason I'm bringing this case up. One of them, anyway. 6 months earlier, the previous maid had quit. We think it was because she thought the farm was haunted after hearing strange noises and voices in the attic. And if that wasn't creepy enough, Andreas Gruber had found a newspaper on his property that neither he nor anyone in the neighborhood subscribed to. Days before the murders, he also discovered footprints in the snow going from the forest to the barn, but none returning, meaning that whoever was had stayed.
Yeah,
The family also reported hearing footsteps in the attic days before the murder, again.
I feel like we gotta just, like, start a rule where, like, if you hear creepy sounds and you can't identify them, like, you need to leave.
Just get out. I don't care if it's the middle of winter in Germany. Just go.
You just need to not be there. Find a neighbor.
Apparently Andreas Gruber had told his neighbors, but he refused any help, and the details just never got to the police.
Take the help.
Apparently he was a difficult person, and in more ways than one. We think the murderer lured the family to the barn and killed them one by one. After they were dead, there's evidence that the murderer lived in the house for several days afterwards, eating meals at their table and even feeding their cattle.
Any murder where the person stays in the house afterwards is creepy as fuck.
Right? Especially because, like, most of the family was in the barn, but also we have the maid in her
The two
bed.
dead people in the house, yeah.
and the son, Josef, who was 2, actually.
Oh, poor baby.
I know. Oh, also there's another very gross similarity between this case and this episode.
Oh.
Josef, the 2-year-old son, was also the son of her father, Andreas.
Oh.
So the baby was the product of incest. And in case you're wondering, we think that Andreas assaulted Victoria. It was rumored in the neighborhood, and I think it was brought to court. We don't know if that has anything to do with the murderer's motivation, but it does feed a lot of theories regarding suspects.
Yeah, I mean, clearly not an ideal person to be around.
No, definitely not. There's one theory that the murderer was Victoria's supposedly dead husband. He was killed in World War I, but, like, there's a theory that he didn't die.
Okay.
Yeah. The farm was torn down about a year after the investigation, and today there's a memorial for the family in its place. So, in conclusion, this episode wasn't based on Hinterkaifeck, but they do have some eerie similarities.
That is horrifying, and I definitely knew about that case.
Yeah.
Turns out.
Yeah, well, the name is hard to remember because it's long in German.
Yeah. And also, like, not the only case I know where, like, families have just got, like, annihilated, no explanation.
Yeah. It stands out in my mind because of just the creepiness of the person, like, living in their house.
Yeah. Meredith, what was your low light and highlight for this episode?
Well, yeah, the whole episode was kind of a low light, but...
That's what I said!
How about, like, if I have to choose one, how about the dog dying?
That's also what I said!
Oh my gosh.
I did also specify specifically the eating of the dog and other animals, just like all of it's bad.
Is there a highlight? How about Sam trying to fit into the back seat to sleep?
Yeah,
that's a highlight.
Actually, as far as like actual highlights go, that is probably mine, that scene where Sam's like trying to sleep in the back seat and Dean's like reading and then like, disturbing his sleep. I also said that Rebecca's daughter killed her father and / grandfather. If she had stopped there, Sam and Dean probably would have jumped through fire to help those 2 kids.
Yeah, probably.
If she just stopped at the grandfather, but like after she killed the dog and the uncle and the
like, there's no hope for you now.
No,
this is war.
I mean, yeah, it was like a life or death. Like every like the death of both the sister and the brother were both like kill or be killed situations. If they had just not tried to kill the people that they were trying to kill, they would not have been killed in return.
Yeah, but the sad thing is they didn't know to ask for help.
Unfortunately, yeah, they didn't have a way to ask for help. And that is not their fault. That is the fault of Mr. Gibson.
Yeah, like they didn't even know that they should ask for help. This was just their reality.
Great segue into the Call CBS segment, which I think, as much as we've called CBS on some parents in the past, never more relevant.
Like the pinnacle of Call CBS.
I don't think there could be a more clear case where CBS needed to be called than like an incest, child in the walls situation. Because awful.
Yep.
I don't feel like we need to say anything else. As Sam said, like the man's a monster and should have had CBS called. Rebecca should have been removed from that situation. Rebecca's children should have been removed from that situation.
Should have fritzled them.
Firing squad. There wasn't really anybody in this episode who I think needed to be fired from their job.
Did the family know that there was a guy killed in their house?
Unclear.
Okay, because if they didn't, the real estate agent didn't do their job.
I actually have thought of someone who maybe needed to be fired, or at least looked at closer. Because theoretically, up until the girl killed her father, he was feeding her via the dumbwaiter. And somebody sealed that up, and like clearly like there was a smell coming from there. There was like holes in the backs of the closets. Whoever renovated this house after the murder and like did like clearly a pretty good job, probably should have like been like, there's a suspicious smell from the dumbwaiter. Wonder what that's about.
There's holes in these walls. Are those supposed to be there? Nah, I'll just leave them.
I just feel like, yeah, like maybe a contractor should have contacted the police and the police should have investigated. I'm not gonna like totally blame them because like they were just like, oh yeah, slap a piece of drywall over this opening. Like,
yeah, I don't think anything that that was obvious would have led to there are inbred children living in the walls.
But like there was definitely something that was like probably dead in the walls, and like they should have investigated that.
More than one something, actually.
Yeah. Mental health check.
Well, Rebecca ain't doing so hot.
Yeah, Rebecca died by suicide after her father like impregnated her twice. So she was a victim of abuse. And also like shamed her for getting pregnant from his abuse. The words that Sam repeated out of Rebecca's journal were horrific. So like basically, yeah, like Rebecca understandably not doing well. Dean also not doing very well. Dean's not sleeping. He's really struggling with his sense of self and his sense of worth and his sense of morality.
Also, before the family even got there, their mental health check.
Yeah, the whole family was not doing well due to the death of their other child.
Which on its own is absolutely earth-shattering.
Yeah, like horrible. Nobody was doing well. Honestly, I think Sam was doing the best of anybody, and that's never like a great sign.
If Sam is doing the best, we need to check ourselves.
We're 2 episodes out from Sam being like, I wanted to die in a suicide mission. And I was gonna do it, except Ruby prevented it from happening.
Yeah, there's something wrong here.
Something has gone wrong. But yeah, no one's doing well, basically. No soul transactions. Sam didn't get knocked out once in this entire episode. No cast. I thought the hostages. There was kind of Danny. Dean got in there and saved him while the girl and her brother were not there. Name the episode. I'm a little afraid to ask Meredith, but what do you think we should name the episode?
The icky one.
Honestly, there's so many that could be the icky one, but I feel like I would know what you mean.
Like based on our like reluctance to just talk about this episode, I feel like no episode deserves the title more than this one. The one with the kids in the walls.
Yeah, I had the one with the kids in the walls on my list as well. I said the one where the dog dies. I know this isn't the only, and it's not the last dog dying, but it definitely feels like the one where the dog dies.
I think it's like the most horrific dog death so far.
I think it's probably just going to end up being the one with the kids in the walls. It's not fun. It's not funny, but it tells you what fucking happened, and that's really all we fucking need at this point. Like, I just don't want to be here.
The episode itself is not fun or funny either.
Meredith, did you have a line of the week?
How about the Scooby-Doo one? Let's choose
the Scooby-Doo line? I think that's cute, yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
My line of the week is, I think, going to be when Dean says, boy, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and 1 homicide. This place is going to sell like hotcakes.
We needed like a tiny bit of levity in this episode.
There was a few little things in this episode that were like entertaining and but overall just very unpleasant to watch. And now we're done with it. We don't have to talk about it ever fucking again.
Nope.
There was like the only relevant thing in this episode for the plot is the revelation that Dean enjoyed torture. And again, with most of the things, with most episodes like this, you can stick that on the end of any episode and not have to keep dealing with this.
Yep.
And this particular episode. So I'm gonna call it a day on this episode, and we're never gonna speak of it again.
Nope, we're gonna burn it.
Next week, we are going to be talking about season 4, episode 12, which is Chris Angel is a douchebag.
And that is a kind of fun episode, which will be nice.
Yeah. Meredith, where can people find you if they want to find you?
On the walls.
Thank God.
Weirdly big walls. You can find me as Shades of Deyanira on Tumblr, Instagram, and sometimes TikTok. And if you go there, you'll see lots of very cool drawings for the fantasy series I'm writing. There's no incest.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It's not that hard to not have incest.
Really, seriously.
This is the most forgivable incest bit in Supernatural, by the way. the way, because they've condemned it so thoroughly in the episode. Unlike every other time we've had even tangential instances, it's never been condemned like this.
It's not that we have to say that. Like, this is the least forgivable it's been. Like,
I may have to edit that into the episode like recap, because it's worth having there, and it's a weird note to end the whole episode on.
Yeah.
I've been KJ, and this has been Supernatural Opinions. If you enjoyed our show, the best thing you can do is subscribe on your podcast app of choice and tell a friend. Check out our link tree in the episode description for all of our social media and any other Supernatural-related projects we might be working on. Send us an email. Our address is supernaturalopinionspodcast@gmail.com, or reach out directly at KJ, @EditingKJ on all platforms. Thank you to Joe Veretta for our theme song, and our logo was created by Faith Ebert of faithanddesigns.ca. The episode was recorded, edited, and produced by me, Editing KJ. If you want to hear more from me, you can check out my other podcast, Series of Opinions. And last but not least, a huge thank you to all of our guests.
Some things in this world are supernatural. What we need is a savior.